Okay, here we're going to go over the first section of our subjunctive quiz. Um, this is on the uses of the present subjunctive. We're talking specifically here verbs of will or influence. Again, some other names we might throw in there too that fall under this category, like verbs of recommendation or verbs of want. So anyway, let's go through it. These are all, if you look at the instructions, these are all going to be in the present subjunctive. So that part won't be too tricky. But as I've recommended many times, when you're looking at these verbs, that should be conjugated in the present subjunctive, and you don't really need to think about if it is it going to be in the indicative, the infinitive, or the subjunctive. Still pay attention to why we are using subjunctive. So even though I know we got the yo form, we've got prestar, I already know without looking at any context, this is going to be the verb preste. All right, we got preste, and this is conjugated. It's correct. I promise it's correct. It's the yo form, prestar, presto, yo form, drop the o, opposite ending. But the reason why it's preste as opposed to presto is because we've got that she needs this. So, she needs me to borrow the keys, or I'm sorry, loan the keys. So because of that, we would use the subjunctive because she needs this to happen. This necesitar is a verb of influence. It wants something to be done by somebody else. Olivia is the one who is needing this, and Joe is the person that is going to do it. So we've got the two things that we need. We have, I'll start here, a verb of influence, and then we also have a change in subject. We've got Olivia here, and then yo for the second clause. Now, this is this first phrase, this subjunctive trigger is in the indicative. So this is the Spanish one stuff. Necesito, necesitas, necesita. This is the regular conjugation that you'd expect it to be, and it is that's the way it pretty much will always be. Is that you have something that tells you you're using the subjunctive, but whatever tells you that you're using the subjunctive is in the indicative. So here in the indicative, a non-subjunctive mood, you're going to have that conjugated regular according to the subject. And over here, as long as you have that verb of influence, you'll use the subjunctive according to the new subject. All right. So let's move on to the second one here. And again, we already know that it is it's a subjunctive conjugation. So barrer su hijo, we know it's going to be barra. Real simple. I mean, I can go ahead and run through this for the rest of these. I'll just do one at a time, I guess. But Pepe prefiere que su hijo barra el patio. Now here we've got the verb in the subjunctive because it is, again, we know it's subjunctive. It tells us to conjugate subjunctive. But let's pay attention to why it is subjunctive. Prefiere. There's our verb of influence. Pepe prefers that this person does this, but they're the one they want this to happen. They prefer that it happen. They're influencing something else to happen, something to happen by somebody else. So we've got a verb of influence. Preferir is a verb of influence. And then we've got a Pepe as a subject of prefiere. And then su hijo is a subject of the second clause here, the subordinate clause. So Pepe wants or prefers that this happens. We got to change the subject. So hijo instead of Pepe, new subject, verb of influence, conjugate in the subjunctive. So the reason I slowed down a minute ago instead of just going into the conjugation is because this one isn't as obvious as what our subject is. But what we can see here is nos mandan. So they are ordering us to do something, but they are ordering us. So the subordinate clause is what is going to be the subject of what this relates to, because they're ordering us to do something. So the us is going to do something. Of course, we wouldn't say us to do something. It'd be we do something. So we're going to conjugate vayamos. Vayamos is our verb because we're in the nosotros form, and we only know that because of the nos object here. The object pronoun is nos, which tells us that the subject of the subordinate clause is nosotros. And that actually will work for all these verbs of communication, ordering us, recommending to us, forbidding us, telling us to do something. Whoever is receiving the action of whatever that verb is going to be the subject of the subordinate clause. So, here it happened to be nos, so nosotros is the subject here. We have le prohíbe, so we know that this is going to be something third person singular is going to be the subject of our subordinate clause here. So we know this is going to be vuelva. And we'll look at the context in just a minute, but that's what we got. Quiero que ustedes oigan. Again, just conjugating according to ustedes in the subjunctive, but why is it? Because we have a verb of influence or a verb of want, a verb of will. I want this to happen. And yo is the subject of this clause, ustedes of this one. So we have a subject change, we have a verb of influence that's conjugated in the indicative. So subjunctive. Here we got a verb of recommendation, or you might throw that with influence. Either way, it works with subjunctive, and it's recomendamos. We've got a nosotros conjugation. So nosotros subject here of the first clause in the indicative, which means we have a verb of influence. Nosotros is the subject here. Ellas is the subject here. So verb of influence, change in subject. We will conjugate this in the present subjunctive. Estén. We've got an accent mark on that E. All right. So there's part one. We're gonna check out the next couple sections too. So, but I'll just go place by place, section by section, and we'll see, how you do overall. And again, this is not an assessment. This is just to see, just a chance for me to review with you some of the things that we've been learning.